Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Hi, it's 5:06. It's O'Connor and Company, and I'm hyper, apparently. My very annoying twin sister, Mercedes Schlapp, is calling me hyper. I'm not hyper. This is energy. I know you're not used to that in your world, Mercedes.
This is relaxed, chilled out Larry O'Connor, who just had an incredible time.
That's true.
Away from
I'm
us.
tanned, I'm rested, I'm ready, and we're going to seize this thing, and we're going to pull it across the finish line come Election Day. In fact, forget about that. Tomorrow is Election Day because Virginia starts early voting tomorrow. I'll give you a quick preview. We've got Governor Glenn Youngkin on tomorrow to talk about that. How's that for a tease? But coming up in this day's program, in 30 minutes, our buddy Chris DeGaulle out of Philadelphia is going to tell us what it looks like in Pennsylvania right now. 6:35, the cool Gorka, Katie Gorka, is going to talk about early voting in Fairfax County. 7:05, our buddy Mary Catherine Ham will join us. 8:05, Kate T. McFarland. And then at 8:35, superstar Matt Walsh with his brand new movie, Am I Racist? That's a lineup. And yes, the cherry on top is Mercedes Schlapp this morning. Good morning, Mercedes.
Hello, Larry. It's great to be on with you. We missed you. I'm going to be honest with you. We did miss you. I mean, we held down the fort, but it was not the same.
I missed you too, but I was enjoying watching all of your exciting, Hollywood-like existence while I was gone with your big movie premiere with Chachi, with Scott Baio here in Washington.
Larry, I was doing a Larry. I was at my house, and we had the actors over to the house, and there was Scott Baio, and I kept walking in and going, can you believe Scott Baio's in my house? I was literally I go, that's so Larry. That's something Larry would say.
I would absolutely do that.
But they're remarkable. It's this, basically, I would say this new industry that's happening, right? Or this revised industry.
Yeah.
You would understand this perfectly well, of just center-right, conservative, wholesome, good movies.
Yep.
Really, the movie In God We Trust, God's Not Dead, and God We Trust.
Yeah.
That one, in and of itself, just talks about, like, if you're a person of faith and you want to get involved in politics, get involved in politics. Don't be shy.
Yep.
Don't be quiet. And it's really
don't
encouraging
hide your
Christian
light
voters.
under a bushel, to paraphrase a very great philosopher
right.
who once
Yeah.
admonished his followers to do just that. That light needs to be on a hill, and they are shining that light right now. Conservatives, Christians. Matt Walsh is coming up at 8:35, and he's part of that Daily Wire team. Ben Shapiro, Jeremy Boring, and they've assembled a huge amount of talent around them. They're making money, and they're making great product, and it's all outside of the studio system. Although, Am I Racist? The movie that Matt Walsh is spearheading, that he's going to talk about today at 8:35, it's done something different for Daily Wire, and they are distributing it in the old Hollywood model. This is not just streaming online for people to selectively go and get it. It's in movie theaters, and it's making a dent, Mercedes. And by the way, we saw it 2 weeks ago with the premiere of the great Reagan movie. Have you seen the Reagan movie, by the way? It's wonderful.
I don't have enough time to watch enough movies, so there you go. I've heard it's excellent. Did you watch it?
I did. I got to see it. In fact, on our cruise that I was on my vacation, they actually got a special screening just for our group on the cruise ship, and we got to watch it while on the cruise ship because Young America's Foundation, they're the stewards of the Reagan Ranch, and so they were, and much of the film was shot at the Reagan Ranch, so they had a special.
That was remarkable.
It was great. So yeah, that's happening. I love that you guys are in the middle of it. I love, by the way, that these movie distributors and the people who are producing these movies know that if they want to have a big splashy premiere and get a lot of news and get a lot of attention, they pick up the phone and call you and Matt Schlapp and say, "Hey, we'd love to do an event in D.C." and you guys do it right.
We are very humbled by these partnerships that are growing. They're blossoming. I really do believe kind of God's putting it together because it just shows that people need to know they're not alone out there. And that's why they listen to WMAL. I mean, I'm telling you, I was out at Riverbend yesterday. By the way, Great Falls has to be the most beautiful area in Virginia besides Madison County because I love Madison County.
Yes.
And there was
and
Joe.
Rappahannock County.
I walk in my tennis outfit, ready to go, no makeup mercy, which can be scary at times. And then all of a sudden I walk in and there's Joe. Joe, he goes, you're Mercedes Schlapp. And I was like, yes, mind you, I didn't even know how he knew who I was. And then and then at that point he goes, I listen to WMAL on my ride every time I'm going to work. I start at 5:30, so I'm going to have to mention his name again at 5:30 to 6, going over to his job, and I was just I loved it. I mean, it was just so great to meet
that's
him.
so
And
cool.
you meet these people.
So he didn't recognize you. He heard your voice. That he recognized your voice is what he recognized.
Might have known. I think they wrote my name down on a sheet of paper, and then I lost the game. But, it's fine. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Our reach is pretty amazing, especially now that people are streaming us all over the place. On my vacation, it was a working vacation because it was a cruise for Young America's Foundation. Probably half of the people who don't live in the Washington area that were part of that still listen to us every morning, because you can listen to us wherever you are, and that's what makes what we're doing so powerful and so fun and so important, frankly, because we're in the thick of it right now. And as this daily news cycle continues to inundate us, we need to be able to sift through it and make sure that we make sense of it for you so that we can sort of lock in and get us to Election Day. And that's why this developing story over the espionage efforts from the country of Iran is so important. You may have seen these headlines. This broke yesterday afternoon. But the country of Iran, and this is, by the way, according to the FBI and the Department of National Intelligence, they put out a press release yesterday laying out how hackers from Iran infiltrated the Trump campaign, gathered information from them electronically, and then delivered it to the Biden-Harris campaign. Quickly reading from John Solomon's report, the intelligence agencies claim the new findings are the latest in Iran's efforts to stoke discord and undermine confidence in our electoral process. They also warn that Russia and China are also increasing their efforts to exacerbate divisions of the United States. Multiple U.S. intelligence agencies on Wednesday revealed that this group of Iranian hackers hacked former President Donald Trump's campaign and then shared the information it obtained with President Joe Biden during the summer, by the way. Mercedes, let's just, step back for a minute. One thing we know about the Biden administration's relationship with Iran is that the second Joe Biden came into office, he lifted sanctions on that country. He freed up billions of dollars for that country. He had a special Iranian envoy, Robert Malley, who is now under FBI investigation because he was too cozy with Iran. His security clearance was stripped. He allowed individuals who were involved with the propaganda arm of the Iranian intelligence units to get jobs in the State Department and the Pentagon. All that money that the Biden administration willfully and completely gratuitously, they didn't have to do this, but they decided they wanted to give billions of dollars to Iran. That money was used, of course, for terror attacks through Hamas and Hezbollah. But now we should assume that money that the Biden administration gave Iran was then used for election interference and illegal spying on the Trump campaign to help Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win a second term.
Yeah, there's no question that, Iran, it's like what the Trump campaign said. They're trying to help Democrats win this election.
They're on Kamala Harris's side.
It's like a new version of the Steele dossier, right? And it's Iran facilitating this. Iran, who we know has said that wants Donald Trump assassinated. Let's be real, because they've been involved in that situation as well.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have the fact that they're using this material that they hacked. They handed it over to the Biden campaign, and then we don't know if the Biden campaign did or did not give that information to the media. And so I believe that there needs to be further investigation into the Biden camp to see if that information was in any way given to the media or given to like the big tech companies so that they can, put the feelers out. I think there needs to be a thorough investigation on that because, quite frankly, that's the next piece of this.
That's right. And it's a huge piece of it. And why the Biden administration and the Kamala Harris campaign, what used to be the Biden campaign, are not being 1,000% transparent and opening up their books and saying, look, we didn't do anything with this information. In fact, we called the authorities immediately. Did they? I want to know.
They?
We deserve to know. There's more on this story. Iran hackers, Iranian spies, deliberately violating the Trump campaign to help Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. More on that in a moment. First, though, it's 5:15.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Richard Grenell, Ambassador Richard Grenell, who was the temporary director of national intelligence during the Trump campaign, he commented on this as well when he saw the story swing around that Iranian hackers sent stolen Trump campaign information to the Biden campaign. And by the way, nowhere in this statement is there any indication whether, as you say, this information was then passed on to the press or used in any way by the campaign. It just says we don't know. They don't know whether it's been published. And I think that question deserves to be answered. But here's how Ambassador Richard Grenell put it. Iran stole information from Trump campaign and gave it to the Biden-Harris team. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which is the office that Ambassador Grenell used to head up, has no idea if Biden-Harris used the information and should not say that it wasn't used, by the way. Stop playing for the Democrats, because the Office of DNI said, this information wasn't used. They don't know that. They don't know that at all.
Well, what?
Oh, go ahead. And really fast. Why isn't Avril Haines, one of the media people who have been publishing about this, ever asked probing questions by the media the way every DNI under Trump was? Oh, I'm sorry. Avril Haines is the DNI under Joe Biden. The national security reporters in Washington need to start acting like real journalists. They've already been duped by 51 former intel officials in the last election. That's right. Every report that you're seeing here that just takes for granted that the Biden campaign did nothing with this information, that's pure speculation. There is no evidence and proof to back that up.
Well, but there's a lot of questions. There is a lot of questions to ask to the Biden campaign. They should really, I think, be very transparent in this process if they did give it any information. And quite frankly, you know who else? If there's emails that have been forwarded, the media should be also held responsible.
Sure.
That's where my head is at.
Yeah.
If it's the Washington Post, if it's the New York Times, I mean, they have their best friends in the media.
If they're passively...
Shouldn't they be involved in this conversation to say, I did receive this information, and yes, we decided to use it, or no, we did not decide to use it? Because if I can recall, back in 2020, there was something called the Hunter Biden laptop. Do you remember that, Larry?
Vaguely. There was a little reporting about that.
Yeah. Where they tried to cover up and, basically censor the New York Post for their story on the Hunter Biden. But give me a break.
But if somebody in the media actually published this information, they're literally passing on illegally obtained product of espionage from a foreign enemy of this country, from a terror state, Iran, all to benefit Joe Biden. And again, let me just reiterate, Iran is on Kamala Harris's side. There's no two ways about it. All right, Donald Trump yesterday at a rally in Long Island, New York, which I want to talk to you about that. What's he doing in New York? Does he really think he's going to win New York?
He was going to go to Gutfeld, so I think
while I'm here, let's do a rally in
happening.
Long Island. All right. Well.
There's several events happening up there. There's money in New York.
Oh, there's fundraising.
The money's gone in a lot of ways, but
all right.
He's probably
he mentioned this during the rally. Here's Donald Trump last night.
And just today, 3 agencies of the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden administration, the FBI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, they just released a report confirming that Iran actors hacked into the Trump campaign's email accounts and in turn sought to give the hacked materials to the Biden-Harris campaign. They gave them all of the materials because Biden is working with Iran, and Iran doesn't exactly like me because they were ready to make a deal, except we had an election that was rigged and stolen. And look at what's happening to our world now. But no, Iran hacked into my campaign. I don't know what the hell they found. I'd like to find out. Couldn't have been too exciting. But they gave it to the Biden campaign. I can't believe it. Oh, yes, I can. But this is really foreign election interference. This is real election interference, not the phony crap that they've been trying to pin on me with Russia for years.
He's 100% right, but he said something there that really needs to be a part of this narrative that you're not seeing. And I've already laid it out, but I want to reiterate it because, it's like, Iran did this, Iran did this. Iran's trying to help Joe Biden, and that's a big narrative. But the other narrative that everyone has to own here is that Biden has been helping Iran. From day one, Biden has been helping Iran, and now Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they got their payback.
Yeah, and look, I think here's what's happening, though. These investigations take forever for anything to come out. We're still waiting on answers on the assassination attempt of Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. And let's remember, Larry, we're talking about a whole new level right now of not only election interference, but the fact of trying to kill a president.
Yes.
It is something we have not seen in our American, democracy. I would say Kennedy being kind of the last JFK last time that we're seeing something like this really happen. I mean, Ronald Reagan got shot as well, obviously.
This coordinated effort, especially dealing with foreign actors. We know that Iran is trying to assassinate Donald Trump, and we don't know.
We don't know. And this is the thing with these Iranian hackers. First of all, we need to know what materials were hacked, number one. Number two, was the Biden camp sending this off to reporters? And number three, reporters have a responsibility as well.
Yeah. To put it another way, what did all these Democrats know, and when did they know it? We've got more on this as the morning develops. It's a big story, so we're going to focus on it. It's 5.
Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on this Thursday morning in your nation's capital. We've got a loaded slate this morning. Check this out. At 6:35, the smarter, funnier, and frankly, much more beautiful Gorka, Katie Gorka, chairman of the Republican Party in Fairfax County. She'll be joining us to talk about early voting starting tomorrow there. At 7:05, the effervescent Mary Catherine Ham. 8:05, KT McFarland. And at 8:35, Matt Walsh. He's in town for a premiere of his new movie, Am I Racist? That's a loaded slate. To make it even more loadeder is our friend every Thursday. That's a word.
You're calling me an extra load or something
Mercedes
like that.
Schlapp is here. You know what? English is your second language, all right? So just listen to me for a minute.
Mary,
I know.
Why don't you call me like the most beautiful or more smarter, radio host
You're just
guest
sounding
with Larry
desperate
O'Connor.
now. You're begging.
Come
you know
on.
what? You used to be my favorite sassy Latina, but now Kamala Harris is. Did you hear her yesterday? She is so good. I love you back, man.
I love you
Say
back.
hello to my little friend Tim Walls.
I'm Latinx, whatever that is.
Joining us right now, and you know what? I'm just scratching the surface on this lineup because joining us right now is my friend and nemesis, Chris DeGaulle. Now, he's a morning show radio host in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Good morning, Christopher.
Good morning. You talk about more loadeder. Back in my drinking days, that's what I would have been right now.
That's you.
Good morning. Glad to have you.
You were on the Imus diet there for your morning show prep, weren't you? I remember that. Those
right.
good old days.
Yeah, it was Evan Williams and me. That's right. Hi, Mercedes. How are you?
Good morning, Chris. It's such a joy. By the way, if Larry doesn't want me, I'll just go work with you in Philly. That's it. I've just decided.
Don't you dare.
It would be an honor to have you. We know how to treat a lady in Philadelphia.
I know.
Oh yeah. That's what Philadelphia is known for. Listen,
moving on.
I don't think it got any better after Betsy Ross. Chris, I do want to
black out of it. Quick to play.
Listen, I do want. Listen, we're going to stick with you for a couple of segments here because there's a lot to talk about on the ground in Pennsylvania as early voting has begun, as I mentioned. And I think you would agree that Pennsylvania is kind of important. But first, you're in town this weekend. I'm so excited. We've talked to you about the great work you're doing with Herzog Foundation and giving parents an alternative to the government-run schools. And my gosh, the work that they're doing with this new awards ceremony. Talk to me about what's going on Saturday night at the Museum of the Bible.
Really proud of it. The Museum of the Bible has hosted this event now. This is our third year. The Herzog Foundation, for those that are not familiar with it, you probably aren't yet. A lot of people don't know, particularly in your area, but I hope they will become so. If you are in Christian education at present, or it's something that you're really considering doing, we hope you'll look into the Herzog Foundation. It's a free of charge, effectively a training, if you will, for different facets of Christian education that we offer all over the country all year long. If you can travel to our training sessions, we cover them for teachers and administrators absolutely free. So if you're thinking about starting a school or you already have a school and you want to learn best practices, that's something I hope you'll look into at the Herzog Foundation. But every year, we started doing something that has never been done before, and that is honoring excellence in Christian education. We've chosen 13 teachers from around the country who we bring in with their families and some of their team from their Christian school, and we honor them as the Teachers of the Year. We have a formal rollout, a nice cocktail reception and dinner. It's a really cool thing to see outstanding alternatives to public education out there and shining and doing well.
I love that so much because, Randy Weingarten and her coven of banshees over there in the teachers union, they're constantly awarding each other, right, about how great they are. They're constantly, patting. It's like how the journalists do it all the time with their little plexiglass trophies that they give each other. And when you look at the people who actually win those awards for great education in the teachers union's eyes, it's the people who are undermining all of our values and everything that we want our children to know about. So that is a great idea that you're doing this. And they picked you to MC this event, huh?
Well, I work cheap. I get a stake out of it. So.
That's true.
I don't get that Larry O'Connor MC money. Am I right, Mercedes?
No, let me tell you, he wears these big gold chains. It's kind of weird. Anyways, let me ask you this, Chris. I really want to also talk about what's happening in Pennsylvania. Obviously, every poll I keep reading, it's like Kamala's up 1, Trump is up 1 or 2 points. What is going on? What's your sense of what's really happening on the ground? And I know that there's concern, just talking to my sources in Pennsylvania. Actually, should just become my source at this point. The fact is that early voting is going to be something where the Democrats can really dominate. Are Republicans really able to get competitive in the early voting component in Pennsylvania?
Well, I will be the bearer of some good news on that front. While early voting is still not something Republicans seem terribly enthused about based on the numbers, they're about commensurate with where they were in 2020. That, of course, didn't work out in 2020 in Pennsylvania, but the news is really the lack of enthusiasm from Democrats. They had over 1 million people request ballots on the Democrat side. That was, of course, during the COVID era of 2020. As of now, there are several 100,000 less at this very moment than they were in 2020. So if that's an indicator, if it is, I say if, it seems Democrats are woefully underperforming in enthusiasm. And of course, you guys have heard, specifically with black men, there's great concern and a belief that she is losing big time there, and with black voters generally. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the case, a lack of enthusiasm, and if Trump has in fact peeled off even more black support, I think she's in real trouble in Pennsylvania.
All right, hold that thought, because we love good news. So we want to delve into that a little bit further, and about what the governor of Pennsylvania might do to sort of potentially put his thumb on the scale when it comes to election integrity and ballot validation and the things, sadly, that we saw a couple of years ago that never really got fully probed. Also about whether there are a lot of people not showing up in the polls right now that are inclined to support Donald Trump. Chris DeGaulle will know about that. He is the voice of Mornings in Philadelphia.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
We continue now with Chris DeGaulle. He's the morning man in Philadelphia, and we're trying to get a read on how it's looking on the ground in that all-important state as early voting has just begun, similar to tomorrow in Virginia. And just a quick heads up, Governor Glenn Youngkin will join us tomorrow morning to talk about early voting. Chris, I saw this recent Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruling that said that mail-in ballots now with incorrect dates or no dates at all won't be counted, which, most of us would say, duh, but recognize that wasn't the case 4 years ago. In fact, many people would suggest that may have been the difference in 2020 for Joe Biden. Do you think that's a significant development here? Because we're not used to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court or any decision in Pennsylvania making common sense about ballot integrity.
Yeah, it was a shocker, I must say. I don't think anybody assumed that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court would be sane in making an obvious decision like that, because that doesn't happen here anymore. I will say that there is still this obscene event in Philadelphia elections called the Satellite Election Office, and I would be keenly aware of those. I've begged the RNC to pay attention to these. Yes, there will be more stringent study of the ballots. Are they signed? Are they dated properly? And according to the court, no, they can't be counted. But the satellite election offices, think of them like ballot collecting DMVs run by probably Democrats. And you go in, you collect the ballot, you fill it out anytime you want, and leave it with them. And the Republicans are not allowed to observe this because it is not technically considered a polling place. It's a satellite election office, you see. And so they've got 10 of those in Philadelphia alone. And they're open for business right now. So don't doubt that Philadelphia is going to try everything they can to figure out a way to screw around with things.
Yeah.
But to our earlier segment, I am thinking, and Trump believes, that if he can turn out, too big to rig, if he can turn people out around the rest of the Commonwealth, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
What are the counties to be? First of all, for whatever reason, back in 2020, I was sent to Pennsylvania like 100 times. Like I felt like I think people thought I actually lived there, which was crazy. But I love Pennsylvania. The beautiful people in so many areas in that state. Tell me the counties we need to be looking for to really see Donald Trump where he needs to make an impact, where the numbers really will be very telling if he could win that state.
He can win virtually every county. Plausibly, he could virtually win every county but two. Of course, Philadelphia County and Allegheny County. But I think more realistically, the suburban collar counties of Philadelphia, which are Bucks, Chester, Montgomery County, Delaware County, and then, of course, Philadelphia County proper, those are largely considered gone and seated, I think, on balance by Republicans. But I'm not suggesting that's Trump's attitude. In fact, he'll be in Bucks County. Bucks County is the one, guys, that everybody seems to kind of consider the bellwether. It's a very purple, tilting red county. And if they can mobilize turnout, Trump's actually going to be in Bucks County on Sunday. If you see that county start to trend red, very, very good news. But again, also watch those turnout numbers in Philadelphia. I would be surprised if they can create the kind of numbers they created in 2020 in Philly. Selena Zito, also our great friend, who I know you guys have on. Selena knows Pennsylvania well, probably better than anybody I know. She travels constantly across the state. And what she's observed is, and she's not backed away from this, in her view, this, in terms of personalities, is matching up to be exactly Trump-Hillary 2016.
Yes.
She thinks there's the same enthusiasm for her. She thinks people are buying her just the same as Mrs. Clinton, which is to say they're not.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of positive news as well. Not hardcore data, but anecdotal.
Well, I know, but a big difference is that people are still stuck in this horrific economy, and you know that even Kamala Harris recognizes that, Chris, because she's trying to run against her own economy, which is an amazing jujitsu there. But voters aren't buying that, it appears, based on where she is right now with the policies. If you ask anybody about the policies, Trump is just cleaning the floor with her.
There are hundreds of thousands of jobs directly tied to energy production in Pennsylvania. And her, let's call it dubious and suspicious stances on fracking alone should disqualify her in Pennsylvania. I mean, again, if you can get people turned out, hundreds of thousands of hunters are registered in Pennsylvania but don't vote because it conflicts with deer season. And I know how stupid that sounds to a lot of people, but
hey, priorities,
that's like a religion
man.
here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. And so,
shoot the deer and then go vote. It's pretty easy.
Well, and actually,
not that complicated.
You said the deer. Just to be clear, the deer. I don't want you anything about Media Matters later.
We only have,
I said the deer.
We only have 30 seconds here, Chris. But you mentioned that
Schlapp advocating shooting. And
I know.
Our local boy made good, Scott Pressler. I think he has moved to Pennsylvania with his incredible efforts in registering new voters. None of those voters will show up in your polls that ask for likely voters because they're not likely voters. They're new voters. There's always an undercounted Trump vote in these polls. So, I mean, he's really outperforming if you bake into the cake that there's a lot of voters that just don't show up in these polls.
Well, that's right. And we also have a ground game like I have never seen before, something called the Pennsylvania Chase. There's an organization dedicated to literally now going out, finding these low propensity voters. Trump Force 47 is also robust. People are door knocking in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for Republicans and asking their fellow Republicans, are you turning your mail-in ballot in? Did you request one? Are you turning it in? So I think the numbers game on this mail-in theme is going to be much more aggressive than before.
That's great to hear because the last two election cycles, you have been lamenting the lack of organization and ground game in Pennsylvania. So to hear you about 50 days out say it's looking pretty good. All right. You made us feel better, Chris. I appreciate that because usually, honestly, I've got a really bad taste in my mouth after talking to you. So this was...
yeah, but that's not from me, let's be honest. Recreational activities.
Chris DeGaulle, my friend, he is going to be emceeing the Excellence in Christian Education this Saturday night at the Museum of the Bible, and tickets are available. Go check it out. Thank you, my friend. Take care.
See you guys. Thanks.
5:54.